What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel today. Thanks for stopping by. I wanted to switch gears a little bit and get away from testing characters and talk about a subject that I have been wanting to kind of bring to the channel for a while now, but was really kind of waiting for the patch and everything, the changes to finalize before I gave my opinion on it. And that is the Alliance War defense, the roster that you put together to put out on Alliance Wars. And probably if you've been playing the game for a while, this is not going to be any new information to you. Your Alliance roster is probably set, so don't waste your time listening to this. But if you're a newer player to the game, or you have just recently kind of got your Alliance War offensive team and Alliance questing team set, and you're really looking to focus in on putting together a strong team for defense, hopefully I can give you some broad direction, some broad suggestions, maybe hone in a little bit on a few specific characters, and be able to help you out a little bit as well. If you have any questions, as always, leave them in the comments. I would be happy to help you out there as best I can. All right, let me switch over to the champion list, and we'll get started. When it comes to picking characters for Alliance Wars on defense, you kind of have to just switch your mindset around, because it's totally opposite from anything else in the game. In the offensive side of Alliance Wars or in questing, you're always trying to pick characters that in some way are going to keep you alive, whether that is through controlling the enemy, whether that is through regeneration, or some sort of debuff that they can put on. You're always trying to keep yourself alive as long as possible. And with the defensive characters that you're picking, you're not really concerned about how long they're going to be able to stay alive. I mean, that's always kind of a plus to the character. But what you're wanting to do is pick characters who have either like an awakened ability or a special attack or a play style that makes it very difficult or even impossible for the opponent to play around. That no matter what they do, there's either a very high chance that they are going to be taking damage, or there is no way for them to get around it. So let me just give you a very quick example of that. Groot comes to mind right away. Groot is a character that doesn't hit very hard. You will not see him used on Alliance War on offense. You won't see him in quests. But especially in the lower tiers, he's a really good defender. And the reason for that is because he can shrug off debuffs, which the biggest debuff that you can get shrugged off when you're a defender is stun. So many people, and again I keep referring to the lower tiers, but a lot of the people in the lower tiers, and even mid to upper tiers, they get so used to everything that they do being centered around being able to parry and stun the enemy. And when that is removed from the table and they have to find another way to do damage, whether that is trying to intercept or to block and evade heavies, they're not used to playing that way, and they can get themselves killed fairly easily. So that is kind of the switch in mindset that you have to have when you're looking for Alliance War defenders. When I was first putting a roster together, the way that I did it is I just threw in an open character that I had, and I was very concerned with getting the synergies, maximized so that each of my characters was doing max damage, which I understand that to a point, but what you will realize as you progress up through the tiers, that the synergies that you come in with are just kind of they're an add-on. They're not really something that you should focus on. You'll be much better off in the long run if you bring in better champions into Alliance War on defense. I would rather have characters that are more difficult to play around than more characters who have got good synergies that are easy to play around. That will help you in the long run be able to put a stronger defensive team out there if you focus more on each individual champ and how they can benefit you and getting the most kills than bringing people in to try to maximize your synergies, because all the power and all the buffs are coming from the nodes themselves. Don't worry about the synergies. If they work out, great, but don't worry about that up front. So what I want to do now is just briefly kind of run through a very quick list, and I'm sure I'm going to leave somebody out, so don't lose your minds, but of characters that I think you should bring in for specific nodes. I talked about it a little bit at the beginning. Characters who can shrug off debuffs are really good for just about anywhere in the game. I mentioned Groot already, Agent Venom, Crossbones, Rogue. I'm sure there are many more than that. Those are kind of the ones that I think of right off the top of my head. Those are good kind of filler characters to bring in that regardless of where you put them at, whether it be a heal block node or an armor up node, wherever it may be, they're going to be good just because they can shrug off those debuffs and be harder to play around because you can't parry as often. For special 1 nodes, I think probably what everybody sees is a Cyclops. I know I've seen quite a few Spider-Mans in unblockable special 1 nodes. Those are both good options for you. I think another option that we might see, I don't know, is Punisher with the change to his S1. I've tried to evade it, but there's really no way to do it. You can't quickly get around all 3 of those. I suppose if you evade the first one, you can block through the second and third. But I think people here, especially at the beginning, are going to have a hard time doing that just because they're going to forget that's what his new special one is. And there's many other characters that I haven't mentioned here, but again, I'm trying to make this brief. For special 2 unblockable nodes, Doctor Strange is a really good option there. I think with his his nerf, we'll probably see fewer of him on the offensive side and in quests, and more of him on the defensive side. So look out for him on special 2 nodes. Howard the Duck is somebody that I think I've only run into one time. But Howard the Duck has got a pretty powerful S2, and really not something you can play around. Venom is somebody that I used to use myself for unblockable S2s. Kind of in the lower tiers, he can be kind of a pain to work around. He's very intimidating as a larger character. You can catch people off guard there. YELLOWJACKET is another really good option to consider. They just changed the animation and the timing of all that for his special 2. So he's going to be much more difficult to play around. And then Ultron, which you'll see his name pop up a couple more times here, is a really good defender all around. His special 2, you can sometimes evade. I've never been able to evade it with very much consistency, so it's not unusual to run into an Ultron on unblockable special 2 nodes. Evasion is fairly straightforward, like the Shrug Off debuff. These are characters that you can put just about anywhere. A lot of times you will find these on unblockable nodes, because that's about the only time that you can really play around them, unless you have a Black Widow or another character who lowers defensive accuracy. But Spider-Man, obviously, is probably on the top of everybody's list. Nightcrawler has kind of taken that crown and moving up probably everybody's list as well. And then Ultron. Those are the 3 that I most often run into for the unblockable nodes, or stun immune, I should say, stun immune nodes. Unstoppable Colossus, Juggernaut, RHINO, those are all characters that you cannot really play around their unstoppable abilities. It's just something that you just don't want to get yourself backed into a corner. A lot of times, especially with Juggernaut, because of his Mystic Dispersion, he is a really excellent choice, because a lot of times you're trying to evade back to get him, to bait out his specials, because he's constantly getting bars of power with Mystic Dispersion, and he will very easily back you into a corner. RHINO, you can put him just about anywhere. My RHINO we used to use on Thorns nodes, we used to use on Armor Up nodes, and he's just a huge pain to deal with because of his huge health pool. When that gets boosted up, he's already got tons of armor. Putting him on an Armor Up node just makes for a really long fight, and the longer the fight is, the more opportunity there is for the opponent to make a mistake and for your character to get in and do some damage and take him down. Power gain characters are relatively newer characters to the game. We're talking like Hyperion, we're talking Mordo, which newer is relative, I understand that. But those are things that are much more difficult to play around and have to be taken into consideration. I feel like Hyperion, whenever I run into him, he always is getting a special 3 no matter what I am doing, which he hits really hard. So Hyperion and Mordo are both good options. Mordo, obviously, because you cannot stun him, is a great option. You can put them basically anywhere. Magic is another. I kind of lumped her into power gain just because of you want to put her on a node that is going to maximize her ability to get more bars of power. Each time she goes and gets the full bar of power, there's a chance to go into limbo, and you want to constantly be getting her, filling that up. So putting her on power gain nodes is probably the best option for her. She is by far, I shouldn't say that. I mean, her and Mordo, I would say, are really neck and neck. Those are the 2 characters that you really want to get a hold of and bring into Alliance War on defense. I would not even say that having 2 magics is a bad thing. I've got her as a 5-star and a 4-star. Obviously, bringing her in as a 5-star, I'd like to get her up to 550 as a 4-star as well. I think bringing in both versions would be completely fine. She's a very powerful champion. And then finally, Dormammu and Hood are both characters that are very new to the game. In the lower tiers, you're probably not going to see them for a while. But in my experience in testing Hood, when he goes into his invisibility state, and even after that, while he's on cooldown, when he's stun immune, he is a very difficult character to understand, and I think a lot of people are going to mess up there. Dormammu has got the ability to put a degeneration on the opponents whenever their buffs are expiring, and that again is just something you can't play around, and we will probably see more and more of him in the higher tiers. But I believe he's got to be awakened in order to get that degeneration. Another character that I will mention that I bring into Alliance Wars all the time, and even in the top tiers, people forget how to play. I don't think they forget how to play him. They just in the moment forget you can't parry him when he's got armor up, and that's Black Panther Civil Warrior. Because of his armor ups, he makes for a very long fight, and I would suggest that you put him on some sort of an armor up node. That's where I've had really good success with him at. His specials, are easily evadable. His damage is minimal. But when you are attacking into him and you're evading back and you're getting into your rhythm, it's very easy to forget that you cannot stun him, parry him while he's got an armor up. And a lot of times that happens, and he's got that reflective armor. He'll hit you and release all of that damage that you put on him. And no joke, I probably get 2 to 3 kills with him on a regular basis in the top tiers. This is going against really good characters that are more than aware of how to play him. But that is the kind of champ that you really want to put in on your defense. Alright, I know I packed a lot of information there into a short amount of time, but I didn't really want to draw this out longer than it needed to be. If you have questions, you can always comment down below and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. But I think that kind of gives you a basic understanding, if you were a little bit confused on how you should be thinking about the characters that you bring in. I realize everybody's got to start somewhere, and you're not going to have the full roster that you would like to be able to bring in. But little by little, as you can, just focus on those individual champs that have got some of the characteristics that I talked about, and add those to your roster. Alright, that is going to wrap this video up. I was about to say, if you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up, but everybody says that, and I hate that. Like, if I enjoyed the video, I'm going to give it a thumbs up. You don't have to tell me. So most of the time, I would re-record these random thoughts that I have that pop out of my head, but I'm going to leave this one on here. I don't care if you thumbs it up or not. If you like it, great. If you don't, you don't. I enjoy putting these videos together, and they're as much for me as they are for anybody else. So have at it. Peace!